Welcome to the newest episode of Beatin' and Bangin'. I'm your host, Kyle Dalton. First off, it's great to have racing back. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about from the weekend at Richmond, including both Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick throwing shade at two completely different subjects, Denny Hamlin offering his thoughts on the potential of NASCAR and motorsports in general, making an appearance at the Olympics in the future, and of course, an entertaining race won by Austin Dillon and an absolutely chaotic finish that was the top storyline, but only after the option and prime tires were used for the first time in a points-paying event with great effect. However, before we get to those stories, I want to follow up on a story from my last video, and it ties in with today's sponsor, Pristine Marketplace. If you saw the video last week, I'm celebrating Christmas in August. What does that mean? I'm Santa Claus and I'm giving you guys the presents, which is more than $1,000 worth of NASCAR memorabilia. Yeah, more than $1,000. But I need your help. I'm looking for items to buy on Pristine Marketplace, and I'll be doing that based solely on the items you guys select. All you have to do to enter is go to their site, which you can find a link in the description, and find 2 or 3 pieces of NASCAR memorabilia that you would like to add to your personal collection, and leave me a comment on what those items are. That's it. And don't be shy, there is no limit on price. Then this week, I'm going to buy many of those items and will randomly select winners and give them away in the coming weeks. Sound fun? But wait, there's more. Even if you don't get your preferred present, you can still win at Pristine by saving $10 off your first purchase with a promo code BB10. Again, that's also in the description. As you know, this is a new partnership with Pristine that I'm super pumped about because these guys are awesome when it comes to memorabilia for NASCAR and all major sports. Go show them some love, save some bucks in the process, and stay tuned to see if Santa selects you for one of the many Christmas and August giveaways from Pristine Marketplace. Now, on to our first story, and it happened on Saturday during media availabilities. With the Olympics coming to a close, a reporter asked Denny Hamlin if he thought that motorsports might find its way into the Olympics at some point in the future. Take a listen.
Do you think motorsports has a place in it?
Yeah, I mean, you would think so. The only difference is usually in all the other sports, right, that the equipment is the same. I don't know how you would do it in a motorsports type of fashion, short of everyone having an opportunity in the same things, but we all know that, man, you change 1 degree of weather or something in it, and it could change the advantage that one has over another. So it would be very difficult. It would be very costly for the Olympic Commission to try to put something together for motorsports, but certainly I saw some sports I didn't know existed this time around, and so would love to see motorsports a part of it. I just don't know how it's feasible it is, being that we all do drive different equipment.
First off, I agree with Hamlin. I also saw some sports that I didn't know existed, like braking. But the one thing he said that really stood out to me was costly. That's what I would think would be the one thing that keeps it from happening, because I honestly think if money wasn't an issue, it would work. I think IROC is the example you could start building from as far as cars used and venues. To be fair, I think you have 3 different shorter races, 1 oval, 1 road course, and 1 street circuit. Hell, figure out a way to combine them all into 1 race. Maybe throw in some dirt. I don't care. And then open it up to whatever drivers want to qualify. And unlike IROC, it's not based on series, but countries. I honestly think you'd have a lot of drivers wanting to participate because it's an Olympic event and it's prestigious. Those are just some basic ideas I have. But I think if you put the greatest minds in motorsports together, you could come up with a format that's fair and works. Would be fun to watch, for sure. All right, enough Olympic talk, but continuing with media availabilities. And the other thing of note to me was Kyle Busch visiting with reporters and showing up with his left wrist bandaged up. He explained what happened.
These great next-gen race cars snap the wheel and snap your wrist.
Is it uncomfortable in the car?
Without 2 weeks off, I would not have been able to race. I'm good. I'm pretty good now.
Busch throwing shade at the next-gen car. Nothing new there. What's interesting to me is I went back and watched the late race incident with Hamlin at Indy. And Rowdy made solid contact with the wall, but what I found most surprising is it was his right wrist that appeared to violently fly off the wheel, not the left one, as you can see in the video. Before Richmond, I was thinking maybe with the timing of the injury at Indy and the Olympic break lining up, allowing him to heal well enough to race, the two-time champ's luck might be turning around. After the Richmond race, where he finished 12th, I think it's still unclear, but he did earn his second best finish in his last 7 races. More on Kyle and his wrist a little later. Moving on to practice and qualifying, and I'm going to have to once again take issue with NBC. More specifically, the NBC Sports app, which I complained about before the race at Indy because it kept prompting me to re-authenticate. The same thing happened this time around. I followed the same procedure as last time and deleted the app, then reinstalled it. But again, like I said a few weeks ago, this is absolutely unacceptable. I don't have this same problem with any other apps. However, I wasn't the only one upset by NBC, and interestingly, one of the most vocal critics was none other than NASCAR and Fox analyst Kevin Harvick. Happy wasn't happy about the fact that the practice qualifying was on an app, as you can see by the multiple posts he shared on X. 2 weeks off, and it took me 20 minutes to find qualifying, he wrote. Don't blame the drivers when no one's watching because it's buried on an app. There was apparently some confusion where it was being aired, and Harvick didn't sugarcoat what he thought about that, which is different than Peacock that has no NASCAR anywhere. WTF. As far as I'm concerned, that's 2 strikes against NBC. Harvick couldn't find it. I could find it and initially couldn't get it to work. Do better, NBC. Please do better. Once I finally did get it to work, I have to say practice was compelling, simply because of NASCAR's implementing the use of option and prime tires for the race, which prompted teams to try different strategies. Some divided and conquered, with one car starting with the option tires to see how they would run and how quickly they would fall off, while the other driver would run the prime tire. That's what Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch did. Martin Truex Jr. ran the option while the rest of the JGR cars started with the primes. As you can see by the graphic, the varying strategies resulted in varying degrees of success. Surprisingly for the Hendrick cars, it didn't matter. They were all really slow in practice, with Alex Bowman leading the way with a 27th best time. Kyle Larson was 32nd, followed by William Byron at 35th, and Chase Elliott bringing up the rear in 36th. Cliff Daniels said during an interview that the HMS cars started their session later than most because they wanted the track to rubber up after 10 laps and it would more closely mimic race conditions. Chase Elliott was the only HMS driver who turned it around in qualifying, finishing 4th. The other 3 all qualified 13th or worse. I just wanted to mention a couple of other drivers of note from qualifying, and that was Josh Berry, who qualified 3rd, and Austin Dillon, who qualified 6th. I'll obviously have much more on Dillon later. Moving on to Sunday and the pre-race coverage, and I thought it was kind of funny that NBC didn't show the driver intros with the exception of one, and that was Denny Hamlin at his home track. Listen to the frosty reception the 3-time Daytona 500 winner received.
Say 70% booze there, Steve. That's, what the norm for Denny these days.
In that first stage, Hamlin, who started on the pole, jumped out to the lead and held it until lap 46 when his teammate Christopher Bell passed him. Martin Truex Jr. passed Hamlin a couple of laps later. There was a theme developing early. On lap 50, 4 out of the top 5 cars were Toyotas, with the 3 JGR cars and Bubba Wallace in 5th. Joey Logano was the lone Ford inside the top 5 at 4th. They finished the first stage in that same order. The lone JGR car that wasn't anywhere close to the top 5 was Ty Gibbs, and he first expressed his frustration late in that first stage.
02. These are back to top 10 lap times here to last 3.
Oh, that's just great.
Well, we'll just put that in the memory bank for later on. We're going to work on the car. We'll keep figuring it out. It's all good.
Much more from Mr. Gibbs to come. Bill made headlines in the stage break for what happened on pit road when he exited his pit stall and clipped the number 43, sending Eric Jones sideways in his box. Stage 2 turned out to be, in my opinion, one of the most intriguing stages all year, as Daniel Suarez opted to go with the red or softer option tire, and oh, what a difference it would make. Starting from the 16th position, the number 99 car immediately started passing cars. it was totally wild to see him blowing past everyone like they were almost standing still. How fast? Incredibly, just 13 laps into the second stage, and the Trackhouse car had navigated his way through the field and taken the lead. All I could think at that point was Ross had to be thinking to himself, why couldn't we have done the same thing? Michael McDowell also took red, started 28th at the beginning of the stage, and had moved up 20 spots in 34 laps. Everyone obviously took notice of what the Reds were doing. However, with the good comes the bad. In other words, rapid tire fall-off. To prevent from losing too much ground, Suarez pitted 43 laps into the run, going back to the yellow, harder tires, and the rest followed. During stops in that second stage, it appeared some teams were rusty from the Olympic break, with bad pit stops, including Chris Buescher and Martin Truex Jr. The soon-to-be retiring driver was frustrated, but not as upset as his younger teammate Gibbs, whose frustrations continued to escalate and eventually boiled over near the end of the stage.
What the fuck are we doing out here? We're going to make it live for 6 more laps.
Suarez impressively won the stage and was followed by Bell, Hamlin, Logano, Dillon, and the other red tire user, Michael McDowell. Translation, the red tires were doing their thing. Remember Busch's wrist? It came to the forefront during the stage break when the two-time champ received a pair of scissors from his crew, drove away from his pit box, and began cutting it away. I've heard of not running with scissors, but driving at high speeds with them? Busch is a man of many talents. The start of Stage 3 was when most of the teams that hadn't used their reds put them on. The beginning of that stage was notable because it was an absolute disaster class for the JGR cars. Let's start with Gibbs. He was still very unhappy with his car.
Just plowing, absolutely plowing. Great. Fucking amazing.
But he wasn't alone in his frustration. Truex was as well, as his car's engine blew up.
Shut it down.
You don't have to yell. I can't understand you. Jesus, fuck.
By my count, that was the fourth JGR car to have engine troubles this year. Bill had his race-winning hopes dashed at Gateway by engine issues. A week later, it was Denny Hamlin's turn at Sonoma. And Gibbs, who started on the pole at Pocono, had an engine failure. So Truex's issue was the fourth time in 9 races a JGR car has suffered some kind of engine trouble. If I'm a fan of any JGR cars, that's concerning as we head down the stretch. Unfortunately, the JGR problems weren't over, as Bell got nabbed for speeding early in that third stage, effectively ending his hopes of winning the race. In that final stage, Dillon, who had been strong all night, showed that he was one of the best cars as he methodically made his way forward and with just under 30 laps to go, passed Hamlin for the lead. The number 3 car surged out to a lead of more than 3 seconds with less than 5 laps remaining and appeared to be in line for the victory and causing total playoff chaos. Then, with under 2 laps to go and right in front of Dillon, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. got into Ryan Preece and brought out the first caution for cause for the race. Yeah, the first one. At that moment, I had a lot of things going through my mind. And one of them was, this had been quite an entertaining race without any accidents, cautions, and restarts. Secondly, I thought this was Stenhouse once again getting back at RCR after what happened the last time we used red and yellow tires at North Wilkesboro in the All-Star race. And lastly, and most importantly, was this is going to be a wild-ass finish. I had absolutely no idea. On that final restart, all the frontrunners had switched to the red tires. Translation, full send. On the restart, it appeared Dillon had lost the race as Logano surged out to the lead and cleared the RCR car on the backstretch in that initial trip around the 3/4 mile circuit. And then on that final lap going into the final corners, Dillon, who was more than a car length behind, went full send and got into the rear of the number 22, sending Logano for a spin. The contact slowed Dillon's momentum enough, allowing Hamlin to slide underneath, and it appeared he was about to make the pass and take the checkered flag for the sweep of Richmond in 2024. However, Dillon wasn't done. Just before the number 11 passed, the number 3 got into his right rear, sending the JGR car immediately to the right for a hard hit into the outside wall. Dillon crossed the finish line first and won the race. Hamlin, who crossed the line 4th, was credited with a second-place finish due to the time of the caution, and was followed by his two 2311 racing cars in Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace. Ross Chastain rounded out the top 5. There's a lot to unpack here, but let's start with Joey Logano. In his post-race interview on NBC, he called out Dillon for being a hypocrite and thanking God and holding his baby after making what he called a chicken shit move. But I want you to hear what Logano said over his team radio when it all went down.
Sending it, half, get a tight push on you. All right, dump this. And he dumped the 11. Hold tight, still car's coming. You okay?
Nice, NASCAR, you better do something about it. That's a joke. That is a joke, NASCAR.
Watch the 11 up here. He's on the bottom. Track's clear.
Better do something about that. That's a joke. Don't do anything. It's a fucking circus. It's a circus right there. If you give this guy the win, what a circus. Where's that motherfucker at? Do anything. It doesn't matter. It's up to NASCAR to make the right call here. It's up to NASCAR, not you, Joey. Don't do a thing. What a joke. This is a joke.
The Team Penske driver was understandably upset. But I thought the most interesting team radio communications came from both the number 3 of Dillon and the number 11 of Hamlin. First, listen to what Hamlin's crew said moments after the checkered flag.
You still on here, Gabe? 10-1? Yeah, I just said. I just watched SMT. There's no doubt about it. He crushed us. Yeah, his spotter just admitted to me and Hirsch. That's on me. I told him to do it. I said, you told him to right rear us. He said, 100% we had to win. Okay, well, at least we got all that on recording. Whatever. It's awesome. Really classy.
Pretty incriminating stuff. But wait, it gets better. I was actually recording Dillon's radio communications at the end of the race. Listen to this.
So by 1.5, I don't care how you do it. 3/4 small run, no run by 1.5. Keep coming down, run him down, wreck him, come on, get on, wreck him!
Oh, yes, buddy. Oh, hell yes, buddy. Oh, Pop's proud of you, buddy.
Did you hear that? The first thing he told Dillon was, I don't care how you do it, before he wrecked Logano. And then, right before he hit Hamlin, his spotter said, come down and wreck him. Dillon clearly heeded his spotter's advice and did just that. Now, I know many of you have thoughts and opinions on what happened at the end, and I want to hear about them. Here's mine. I feel the first move by Dillon on Logano was one that we've seen in the past and NASCAR's been okay with. Hell, Logano did something similar to William Byron for the race win at Darlington in 2022. But that second move where he hooked Hamlin was over the line. I don't care that it was on a short track. I've said it since Bubba Wallace did it to Kyle Larson at Vegas and echoed it again last year when Chase Elliott did it to Hamlin at Charlotte. There is no place in this sport for intentionally right rear hooking another driver. Period. End of story. It's just too dangerous. According to Elton Sawyer, NASCAR is looking into it, but I have my doubts whether anything will actually be done. If anything was to be done, it should have happened at the track. Give Dillon a 2-lap penalty for rough driving or something along those lines. Officials had all the information at their disposal. According to Hamlin's radio, the SMT data showed it. I recorded the number 3 team radio, so they had access to that. Heck, even in Dillon's post-race interview, he said he hated to do that, which I think was a tacit admission. I guess the only thing I can see happening now that would fix the situation is they allow Dillon to keep the win, but suspend him for a race for deliberately hooking Hamlin as they did with Wallace and Elliott, and then don't give him the waiver so the race win doesn't get him into the playoffs. Do I think it will happen? Absolutely not. One last thing that I think sides with nothing happening to Dillon is NASCAR will rationalize that he was the best car. He was and deserving of the win. But that last caution changed everything and opened it up for anyone to win. Dillon ultimately did, but did so in a way that's not a good look for him or the sport. All right, guys, that's a wrap on this episode. We talked about a lot, and I want to get your thoughts. Let's start with Denny Hamlin's remarks on motorsports and the Olympics. Is it doable? Do you think it would be interesting? And what about the practice and qualifying session on the NBC Sports app? Did you have problems finding it like Kevin Harvick or getting it to work like me? And finally, what did you think of Sunday's race? Did you like how the race played out with the drivers using different tire strategies? And were you as impressed as I was with how fast Suarez and McDowell sliced and diced their way through the field on those red tires? And lastly, I want to hear what you thought about that crazy finish. Fair or foul? Should there be a penalty for Dillon? I want to again thank Pristine Marketplace for sponsoring this video. And remember, if you haven't already, go visit the link in the description and leave me a comment about a couple of items you want to add to your Christmas in August wish list. I'll go buy many of those items this week and give them away in the coming weeks. Also, if you want to buy something for yourself, go ahead and use that code and save $10. Thanks as always for supporting the channel, and have a great rest of your day.